Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, your drink, or your beverage of choice. A glass of red wine might be good. A cup of coffee or tea. Don't forget the Kool-Aid for the kids. Call your neighbor, call your friends, call your mama and your papa, your grandmama and your papa, your nieces and your nephews. Let them know that Simon Says is on. Buckle your seatbelts. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. Well, we have to continue from last week. I have to bring to you my findings on gravel and concrete. But things happening. Things happened over the past few days that I must bring to you. Things happened with the nurses' monies. Last fortnight, all of the nurses lost their honorarium and some salaries were touched. Then, notice. A notice was sent out to the nurses. Let me get that here for you. And it reads, "Good day, nurses. Kindly note that the honorarium will not be reflected with salaries this bi-monthly." That is after the fact, after the nurses start talking and say, well, we see we honorarium, what's going on? Then they put out this statement, right? Telling them that it will not be reflected. They already know and saw that it wasn't reflected, right? Hopefully, by the second bi-monthly, it will. This is due to an administrative issue and a new system. Please ask your staff to refrain from calling. Many thanks. All doctors and nurses are affected. A new system, my foot. Huh? Things happening with the police, negotiations for salary and fringe benefits for the period 2026 to 2028. And this one reads, "Good afternoon, everyone. The police negotiation team met on Tuesday, the 13th of the first month, 26, with the JNT to continue negotiations for salaries and fringe benefits for the period 2026 to 2028. Our proposal put forward for salaries were 7%, 5%, and 5%. The JNT stressed that government can't afford to pay more than 3%, 4%, and 3%. We therefore sought to capitalize as much as possible on fringe benefits. It was reiterated that increases will not be paid on the same FB in consecutive negotiating cycles. However, we were able to reach agreements for the following areas: duty allowances, $500 to $600, rent in aid, $200 to $350, plainclothes, $100 to $200, detectives, $100 to $200, incentive, $150 to $200, prosecutor allowance, $400, concession on hybrid vehicles as follows: service of over 10 years, 80%, over 20 years, 85%, gazetted officers, 90%. Note well, These are subject to approval from government. Now, this after the Cabinet of Grenada took an average salary increase of 150%, travel went up by 300%, bought themselves vehicles, says for constituency. Some members, ministers, and members of cabinet is using it to drive to work every day, have their driver driving them to work in the constituency pickup trucks, right? And they want the police, the RGPF, who they care about so much, to take 3%. Things happening. We move to Deacon Mitchell on the narrative. And you know, I had my episode well planned out. I told you all I was coming with first, and it was well planned out. And things happened. Things happened. The Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, was on the narrative with Callistra Faria on Tuesday, the 20th January 2026. It was a pre-recorded interview. In that interview, in my opinion, the Prime Minister tried to do damage control from his awful interview on Beyond the Headlines the week before, right? So he tried to do a little damage control there. That interview on Beyond the Headlines was on the 5th of January 2026. He spoke extensively on the UK SIF project. And so I thought I'd share that with you, since I had done 2 pieces on this nuisance of a project that has disturbed everyone's life who traverse the area that are affected by the project. Now, not just Belmont, Grandans, Point Celine area, but also Marian, Calavini Road, Fort Judy, and Granny Town areas as well. So let us listen to what the Prime Minister had to say as to why the project is moving so slow.
In a sense, the question is directed at me as the Minister for Infrastructure, but I should emphasize that the pipeline exercise is a NAWASA project funded by the UK SIF government. And the consultant is headed by Nigel John on behalf of the client, NAWASA. The contractor is Mr. Joe Gilbert and whatever his company is. So perhaps if you want real specifics, you should contact these 3 entities, NAWASA, Mr. Gilbert, and Mr. John. But
they give you a report.
But no, I'm going to come to that. So I will do my best to explain my own dissatisfaction with what has transpired. The contractor was paid, I'm told, an accelerated fee to accelerate the work, because we recognize that there's a timeline for when the funds are available. And if you recall, this is one of those projects that almost died because of the enormous delays in implementing the project. 2, it seems that the contractor suffered with some capacity issues in the beginning because it was night work. And I suppose persons probably are not used to working at night. The contractor is responsible under the contract, I'm briefed, for pressure testing the pipes. Now, this is a critical issue, and I've made it clear that I'm not accepting any shortcuts, because when that pressure comes down from Concord and comes through those pipes, we cannot have a situation where the pipes are leaking or the pipes burst. The implications will be catastrophic. And therefore, if there are issues with leaks and so on, we need to know that now before the roads are reinstated. My brief is that the contractor is responsible for doing so. The contractor seems to have had no equipment to be able to do so. NAWASA, therefore, has taken on its own and attempted, even though it's not its responsibility, obviously it will audit because it's the client and ultimately it's responsible for water, but doing the pressure testing itself to try and help move this issue along. That led to some contention between them and the contractor. Without doubt, the contractor as well is also responsible for reinstating the road. That has not gone satisfactory. And I think it's important for us to understand, because I don't think the public quite gets that. Contracts are awarded to people who they themselves don't have the capacity to do the contract. So they then subcontract. So you may be the overall contractor for the project, but the specific aspect of road reinstatement is being done by someone else who you subcontract to. Oftentimes, though, if you are subcontracting to someone that you're not supervising, or they may not have the actual capacity to do it, you end up with the kinds of things that we've ended up in Brandon's. And there are all kinds of issues: lack of aggregates, lack of bitumen, lack of asphalt, and we can go on and on. But in my view, a bigger overall issue of many of our professionals and contracting firms locally not investing in the resources, whether it's equipment or human resources or unavailability of human resources, to do the jobs that they're being paid millions of dollars to, right? I've said this to NOASA, I've said this to the consultant, I've said this to the contractor. It has gone to the point where there is no excuses in terms of, in my view, the callous way in which the road conditions are, because the reinstatement of the road, even if you don't pitch the road, they certainly could do a better job. I've driven on this road at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, there's no work taking place. Right? So even if they're working from 9 to 2, which is 5 hours, that's not a lot. There's no excuse, because you have between 2 and 6 in the morning to do a far better job of at least making the road usable and less dangerous. I mean, all of these loose chip stones and so on, they're dangerous. They could certainly hit people, people could slip and fall. But I want the public here to understand these kinds of issues. I have no power to terminate the contractor if I'm dissatisfied, because the contract is between NOASA and the contractor. The procurement and funding is coming through UKSIF and the Caribbean Development Bank. So even if I wanted to, I can't call the Caribbean Development Bank and say terminate, because there are legal obligations, there's all kinds of processes that you have to go through. So a lot of times people blame the government for stuff that the government has no control over. The government had no say in who became the contractor. There's a procurement process that is followed. It had no say in who became the consultant. The only thing the government could have done really in this case was to try and fight, thankfully, and the UK government agreed to make the funding available so that the project could proceed. But the management of the project is being done by NOASA, its consultant, and Mr. Gilbert. We have sought, obviously, to put pressure and to get involved and to ask for more rigorous updates and to insist that things that make sense happen, right? And it still, respectfully, is not happening, in my view, anyway, close to the pace. The road reinstatement is awful. There's no other way to accept it. They are seeking to reinforce just the track that they dig, but obviously they're using equipment that damages either side of the road. And you see that kind of stuff all the time. So the truth is, and I've said this repeatedly, I've tried to be kind to a lot of us who are in the construction industry over the last 3.5 years, and hope that we will actually care a little bit more about our work, care a little bit more about the image of the country, care a little bit more about the quality that we deliver to the public. But it doesn't seem to me that being kind is working, right? So the reality is we have to be honest. And I don't know of any member of the public who would say that what is going on is acceptable. It is not.
Now, what we continue to hear from Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is displaced responsibility, avoiding accountability, always blaming others, passing the buck, moral disengagement, always distancing himself from negative outcomes. It wasn't me. It's a NOASA project funded by the UKSIF, the consultant Nigel John and the contractor Joseph Gilbert, both hired by NOASA. And that's who the question should be directed to, not me. And extempo for so all sort of make-up stories about bitumen and aggregates and asphalt. We've heard it before, time and time again. They don't want to use the ones produce here because it's competition. That's not the Prime Minister's business. Who's competing with who? How that become his business? Right? Now, I have a question of questions, as a matter of fact. Isn't NOASA a subsidiary of the government of Grenada? And isn't Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell the head of the government of Grenada? And isn't NOASA an arm of the Ministry of infrastructure. And isn't Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell the Minister for Infrastructure? What we missing here? What have we missed? That the Prime Minister say he has no authority over what is going on the road. Because it's Nawasa project and Nawasa hired the consultant and Nawasa hired the contractor. And are you saying that if it was you, you'd have fired them? Hmm? It's always who, me? Not me. Couldn't be. Then who? Is you. Is you, Prime Minister. You are the Prime Minister that is responsible for Nawasa. But here it is. He had a meeting with Nawasa and the contractor and the consultants. And he made it clear to them that he, and I'm quoting here, that he is not accepting any shortcuts with the pressure testing. Speaking from both sides of his mouth. 1 minute, he can't tell them nothing because they hire them and he can't do nothing about it. Next minute, he called them and cautioned them. He went to a meeting with them and cautioned them, right? What is it? It is about throwing the contractor under the bus. The Prime Minister had made it absolutely clear several times he is disgusted with local contractors.
Contractors in Grenada need to take themselves seriously, and they need to take government work seriously. For the last 2.5 years, for them to get government work, they need to invest in their businesses, they need to invest in their personnel, and they need to devote resources to projects when they are given, and they need to begin and complete them in a timely manner. There's only so much the government can do for them. If you're serious about the contracts that you get, you will take it seriously and you will deliver. This is not just a challenge. You see many Caribbean countries that challenge persists. But we are doing everything to try and empower contractors. They also have to take their responsibilities seriously to make sure that they can deliver and deliver work on time, right? So when a contractor is given a road, the public can judge by themselves whether the road is being built to the standards that the public expects. And so it is important for us to make sure that we hold contractors accountable. There's been a culture of not holding them accountable, and that's the truth.
You could hear the venom in his voice when he'd speak about the contractors and it's like he really don't want to have anything to do with them. And owing a lot of them, owing a lot, if not most of them, I guess probably only cousin Sky, and so that's getting away, Yeah. Now let's hear him as he continued to speak on the roads.
What I can certainly say is that we, and I've certainly myself have gotten involved in actually meeting with Nawasa, the contractor, the consultant, to first of all say, look, we are already significantly inconvenienced. There is no point in slowing down the work. You need to accelerate the pipeline because at the end of the day, we recognize the singular importance of this. This is a once in a generations a project, so we need to get the pipes done, right? We have already suffered enormous inconvenience in terms of the conditions of the road to the point where the entire road is going to have to be redone, all right? And therefore, the reinstatement is effectively temporary, just to ease the challenges that would allow us time then to actually get the design and procurement process to redo the entire road, certainly from the Republic Bank roundabout all the way into Burns Point once the pipes are laid. So we're hoping that in the next month they can accelerate coming across the Lagoon Road, coming across Burns Point, and then they can finish the piece between the Gulf Coast Gap and the Fallage, so that we can at least say we've completed the pipeline and then we can actually get on with improving the overall road conditions. But it's not just Grandlands. As you can see, pipeline is going all the way through Calavini area, all the way through Granitang. These are enormous projects. We don't have a choice because water is absolutely vital, especially for the southeastern and the southern part of the island where no water is produced. And we have to be able to move the water from the western and northeastern part of the island into the southern and southeastern part of the island.
What we'd like to know is who is the private company that's partnering with Gravel and Concrete to open the telescope quarry. I have an idea. But we await. We await who is this private company. It's all about the boys. It's all about the boys and the eating of the food. It's all about, and these days it's like it's rough. They're running out of time, and so all man is just grabbing. Is just grabbing. So the emperor, because this prime minister got to be the emperor. He's sitting on a throne, naked as he's born, and the surrogates and the supporters see him fully clad, fully clothed in gold suits, gold threaded suits. That's what they're seeing. So the emperor met with Nawasa, the contractor and the consultant, to express his concerns, to speed up the project, to finish the laying of the pipes. This is the same person who couldn't tell Nawasa anything, right? But he told him he had enough. Speed it up now, right? The extemporing continued. We have already suffered inconvenience in terms of the condition of the road, to the point where the entire road has to be done. That's not today. That's not as a result of this UKSIF project. Like he continues, the terrible conditions of our roads. He's speaking of the terrible conditions of our roads. But the terrible conditions of our roads happened long before the Nawasa project, long before Nawasa dug up the roads. He's saying the equipment they're using to cover the road, to cover the holes, the space they dig up, and to repair and to recover, is damaging the side that wasn't dig up. That's what he's saying. Commuters have been complaining long before Nawasa dug up the roads. So much, I mean, of course, it's way worse now. But so much so that you, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, told us in Parliament, it's on record, that you were waiting for the UKSIF project to happen before you do the paving that is needed, because you don't want to pave first, and then they'd come now to come and dig up, and then you have to repave again. People gonna say, if all you know what all you're doing, or if all you're crazy, or something of the sort, which would be well in line to say that, right? In fact, here is the clip.
And that's just 2 little roads, you know. We now need to resurface the entire Eastern Main Road, from Point Saline Airport, Morris Bishop International Airport, to the Sugar Mill Roundabout, from the Sugar Mill Roundabout to the Woodlands Junction, or what is sometimes called Stinky Bridge. The Woburn Road is probably going to have to get some work after the heavy traffic that is enduring because of the stoppage of the access to the roads from Woburn. If you take from the cliff all the way to Egmont Junction, it's as bumpy as they come. And that's just the Eastern Plan. We ain't talking about Grandlands Main Road, which needs to be completely resurfaced. But there are other complications, Mr. Speaker. We wanted to resurface Grandland since last year. But we have the Southern Water and Sewage Project from the UKSIF, which means we are going to have to run significant new water pipe infrastructure, and unfortunately, there are no easements. We know a lot of these homes are literally in the road, and so the pipes have to be run in the road. I think we would all understand that if we resurfaced the road last year, and then starting April or May this year, we see tractors coming and digging and ripping up half of the road to lay pipes, everybody go asks if we mad and if we can't plan. So to some extent, Mr. Speaker, we have to await this project. We had a debriefing yesterday. We are hoping that construction, as in the actual laying of the pipes could start in April. This is a 9-month project. So there's going to be significant inconvenience on the Grandlands Main Road if this starts in April for the next 9 to 10 months before we can resurface the entire road.
So you've heard him. He wanted to resurface the Grandlands Road since last year, which was 2024. This project started in 2025, end of 2025, right? He said that he wanted to resurface, but he couldn't do it, or it didn't make sense to do it if that project was coming on stream. Now he's sounding like, because of the project, that job we're getting from the contractor, he would have to resurface the roads. The consultant on the project, Nigel John, on Beyond the Headlines, on the 10th of November 2025, stated that they are responsible, that is NWASA, is responsible for the reinstatement of the roads, and that the government was responsible for the paving. Now, the reinstating, when you reinstate something, is putting it back how you met it. So they dig, they cover, they put the asphalt, coal mix, they put in, as I understand it, although they make hot mix, they put in coal mix, right? And they do that. And that's what they are responsible for. And he said the government is responsible. Well, you heard the Prime Minister said, but let's hear the consultant.
Also ask this, because there's road repair and there's resurfacing. What is going to be taking place?
Well, what we're doing is reinstating as was before. That is what the contract requires for. So if you had a piece of concrete, you had to put back concrete. If you had asphaltic pavement, then you put back the asphalt. If it was grass, we plant vetiver or something, right? So and that is why we're using the term road reinstatement. Right. Whatever the surface was prior to commencement of the work.
So it's reinstatement, not resurfacing, because there's still...
Oh no, we're not going right across. It's just where the trench, where the trench is. That's a different project that is intended by the Ministry of Infrastructure to do road resurfacing on...
and that's why I just want...
We have to continue to show up this guy, because he's lying, he's deceptive, he's misleading, right? And he's barely opening his mouth to say, to mumble out these things, right? And of course, the surrogates believes, right? You heard him. They are responsible for the reinstatement, and the Ministry of Infrastructure responsible for the paving, the resurfacing. So for the Prime Minister to suggest that it's because of the poor work done that they now have to pave and resurface the roads is downright misleading. It's more deception and more lies. On that same episode on Beyond the Headlines, the consultant gave high praises to the contractor, contrary to the utterances of the Prime Minister, and the shades thrown at the contractor.
No, I must hasten to say that we're bringing forward the resurfacing, because just as with any pipe installation, and as Ronald would have mentioned, the typical chronology would be you install the pipe, you do the temporary, the backfilling, right. You don't resurface, you complete pressure testing, and then, however, in the instance of the roads down in the south, in the Grandlands, Caliste, Boyneslina, and so on, the stress that is being expressed by road users, business owners, residents, and so on, is that it is now becoming unbearable for them. That is what they're expressing. So we're actually moving ahead with road reinstatement, the permanent reinstatement, prior to completion of the pressure testing. Now, you might say, well, should we take that risk? It's a calculated risk. pressure testing has commenced, and the first of the pressure testing has been successfully completed. We are also looking at the experience of Gilbert and Partners Engineering Company in that sort of work, and it's a pretty good track record. So it's really a calculated risk. So we consider that if indeed there is some issue, we don't expect that issue to be pervasive. We don't expect it to be all over. So, and we do have the technology on island to actually find where a leak would occur. We have the sonar technology. So we wouldn't have to be digging up all over to try to find where the leak is.
Let me
You do have the technology on island. Yeah, the Prime Minister. Now, WASA needs to tell us what is the real reason for the slow movement of the project. Was monies given to central government from the WASA to help conduct the business of the state, and therefore the cash flow is low and in some cases has disappeared. Let's hear the next clip.
A year ago, Prime Minister, I spoke to you, and even those roads that are not part of this massive water projects that are happening are also in a bad state. And one of the things you said was we can't get bitumen. You talked a lot of what you just said now. You talked about then the capacity of contractors, the diligence of contractors. And what have you done in the last year to shore up things so that that part of it that your ministry is responsible for, which is roadworks, is taken care of?
Yeah, so what we've done is invite contractors from outside of Grenada to, in fact, bid on road, I would put it this way in general terms, roadworks throughout the length and breadth of Grenada on a finance, design, build, and maintain model. That requires, obviously, for these contractors to come in to speak to us about the roads, speak to us about the packages, be able to then give us their quotes, because they have to get the financing to do it, and then be able to operationalize moving forward. So where we are, we have a number of at least 2 or 3 companies, Calco, Namalco, CIE Construction Engineering, it's Mr. Reno's company, who've all come in and made those bids. The ministry, I just came from a briefing with the ministry where we are identifying the packages that is likely to be awarded to some of these contractors. These companies are bringing in their own asphalt plant, because we actually only have 1 asphalt plant on the island being operated by CCC, 1 quarry being operated by CCC, which essentially means everybody who needs asphalt, including the government, is completely dependent on CCC. The quarry itself is problematic and probably should have been closed a long while as well. We are working with Gravel and Concrete to reopen the Telescope Quarry. Gravel and Concrete is likely to be partnering with a private entity to enable it to do so successfully. We're hoping that this can happen within the first 6 months of the year. We believe the equipment and so on is already on the way. So we obviously have to look also potentially at importing aggregates if necessary in order to be able to actually build the road. So we expect that by the end of February, we should settle on the packages. I should say some of the preliminary packages would be from the Morris Bishop International Airport to the Woodlands Roundabout, and then from the cliff to the entrance to Old Westall, New Westall Point, and then from Old Westall all the way back up to St. Paul's Police Station. We're also looking at the Decoy Roundabout all the way to Mount Kumar. That is a major road. The Mabuya, what is called Mabuya, which is the road that is now not passable from the entrance of when you exit Guav, which has been like that, I think, for the last, I don't know, maybe 30 years. We're looking at that. We have to deal with Willis, the Willis Road, which was a leftover from the Hanover project. So all of these.
Who does be using asphalt like water? Because everybody who needs asphalt going to be using CCC, and it's CCCCI. You well know. They're going to be using asphalt. That's the one company, and if everybody who come into work that they bring into work have their own asphalt plant, well, we have asphalt plant till we're going to be able to give away, right? Now, the Ministry of Infrastructure has engaged contractors outside of Grenada, and that's according to the Prime Minister. and Minister for Infrastructure, Deacon Mitchell. He spoke of finance, design, build, and maintain model. The finance, design, build, and maintain model. Now, we've been talking about that. He spoke about it in Parliament, that anybody they're going to give contract next has to be able to finance, design, build, and maintain the roads, the bridges, whatever they do, right? Now we got in somewhere. A true picture of what the real problem is, and that's money. The problem is money. And so the little contractors here, they might be able to start, but then they're going to need a little money to continue to pay their workers and things, and they go again, and they're going to need, but my man wants somebody to be able to, if you're going to get the job, you have to be able to finance the whole project up front. So we're looking for companies who can finance the road works, companies outside of Grenada, like Calico or Calco and Lamalco and Reno. Right? You hear we jamming Mr. Reno company in the end there. If you ain't listening good, you would not have heard it, right? Reno, we know, is already here and contracted by the government of Grenada. According to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the government facilitated the landing of Reno's asphalt plant and then gave him a place to install that plant. Reno is now a citizen of Grenada. He holds a Grenada passport. Now, Alco found guilty of practicing corruption and is barred from receiving any contract from the government of Trinidad and Tobago. All his road projects has failed. Their road projects has failed. Calco was also thrown out of Guyana and blacklisted there as well. Lamalco cannot bid for jobs. They're blacklisted in Trinidad, would not get a government job in Trinidad. But they are getting subcontracted jobs in Guyana. So if I get a job, if I'm the contractor, I could probably, and I would subcontract them to do to help on the project. So they're a little better than Calco. In the Trinidad Newsday, dated Thursday, August 2020, Justice James Aboud dismissed the preliminary applications of 5 contractors, of which Calco was named, which sought to have the Estate Management Business Development Company, EMBD, properly particularized the facts against them so that they could fairly mount their defense or strike out the claims against them. It didn't work. Now, EMBD is a government agency or agency working for the government that distributes contracts on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago. In this news clip, EMBD wins judgment against the contractors.
Government's continuing commitment to insist that wrongdoers are brought before Trinidad and Tobago's courts to account and that corruption will not pay were reflected in a judgment by the Court of Appeal on Tuesday. The words of Attorney General Reginald Armour, SC, after the Estate Management and Business Development Company Limited, EMBD, won a judgment in the Court of Appeal against several contracting companies for conspiring together to obtain state contracts.
On Tuesday, in a unanimous 38-page judgment, the Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal filed by TN Ramnath and Company Limited, Taradat Ramnath, Calco Limited, Motilal Ramhit and Sons Contracting Limited, and Fides Limited against the August 6, 2020 decision of Mr. Justice Aboud. Attorney General Reginald Armour says these contractors, by this appeal, had sought to overturn Justice Aboud's dismissal in the High Court of their applications to strike out EMBD's case or to compel EMBD to provide further particulars of its pleading. And had they succeeded, they would not have been required to give evidence in the High Court to defend themselves against EMBD's claims. The Attorney General says the case has been ordered to continue to trial in the High Court, and the contractors and their controlling minds will now take the witness stand. Mr. Armour points out the contractors tried to argue in the Court of Appeal that EMBD's case in 2017 did not contain sufficient detail to permit them to know the case they had to answer. He notes the EMBD's case against these contractors is that they engaged in acts of unlawful means conspiracy, dishonest assistance, and knowing receipt based on allegations of bid rigging and corruption in the tender, award, and administration of 12 contracts entered into the period May to August 2015. AG Armour points out that in delivering the court's judgment, Mr. Justice of Appeal Raj Kumar had regard to, among other things, EMBD's pleading of text and email exchanges among an official of EMBD and some of the parties, and EMBD's analysis of the correlation and oddities in the bids submitted by the contractors. He says the Court of Appeal held that there can be no doubt that any of the appellants could be unaware as to what is being claimed against them, and further, that there is no possible argument that the facts pleaded here were equivocal or consistent with something other than dishonesty. The Attorney General says the Court of Appeal held that sufficient primary facts had been pleaded to permit the inference, if proven at trial, that A. there was a cartel arrangement among the appellants, B. the cartel arrangements, including the selection of the contractors to tender and the rigging of their bids, were deliberately embarked upon with the intention to benefit themselves at the expense of EMBD. C. the actions and activities of the appellants were only compatible with an inference that they were the product of controlling minds. And D. there was an intention to cause EMBD actual pecuniary loss. The appellants have been ordered to file their respective defences on or before March 20th, 2024.
Now, Calco, company that the Prime Minister mentioned, as I understand it, they already here in Grenada as well. Was due diligence done? My understanding is that it's alleged they do substandard work and they're involved in corruption, cartel-like corruption. But our contractors are not good, so and they don't have the money. They don't have the money, most of all, to put forward. So we're going to bring in foreign ones. We're going to bring in foreign ones. Now, whilst the government of Grenada is engaging contractors, or should I say new contractors, there are unfinished business with the Hanover company. Now, Hanover was contracted to do 12 roads. Well, as a matter of fact, 11 roads with the previous administration, and bridges and other improvements, contracted strictly to do construction. So no designs and all that sort of thing. They just came to do the construction. So designs and all of that should have been prepared before they got here, right? Hanover employed 350 locals and 5 foreigners, which included 3 engineers, because, as I understand it, they were not happy with the engineers, the senior engineers that is at the Ministry of Infrastructure. So the manager and deputy and 3 engineers, 5 foreigners. 350 Grenadians was employed with Hanover. You heard the Prime Minister mention the Willis project, started by Hanover to be completed. A project that was plagued with designs and land acquisition issues, which caused the project to stall in the first place. Also, cash flow issues. The landowner at one stage locked one of the landowners, confiscated, if you could say, Hanover's equipment, right? In an effort to stop the project. The Prime Minister and Minister for Infrastructure, Deacon Mitchell, agreed to shut down the project and take care of the business that is needed to be done, like the designs and to deal with the landowners, and promised they would restart in April of 2024. Now, this was not by the way. They sat at a meeting and this was the outcome. Now, the residents of Willis surrounding and the surrounding areas complained about the project, the halt of the project, and the way it was left, and the inconveniences as a result of the halt of the project.
Residents of Willis spoke with one voice, expressing displeasure over several unfinished road projects within the community. A walk through the area in St. George Northeast revealed incomplete construction with exposed steel and open trenches. Property owners find it difficult to access their homes as gaps leading to their driveways remain broken.
Just inside there, they had like 6 different contractors. Nothing is getting finished. Steel sticking up, open trenches all over. If you walk in here, you might be able to twist your ankle, and everybody inside Willis is very, very upset. Right next to the school, as you see, there's an open trench there, still sticking up. What if a child push a child, he run in, they trip, they fall? God forbid something bad is going to happen.
Another resident who did not wish to appear on camera says work has halted for over 2 months, and he is concerned that the area is becoming a health hazard.
The work stopped about 2 months now, and nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what's happening. With all our representatives, so we could go to, because we heard he went and study at this point. He come in, he run for election, and after we heard he went and study, we don't know what's going on. He never returned back to the village. We filed complaint, and nothing happening. I'm not blaming the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister's hand is full at this point, but we need that message to get to him at this point.
Residents told MTV News that while they are not sure why work has stopped, they have heard reports that several workers are still waiting to be paid for work done so far.
Because children falling down and the drain when they come out of school, the older people cannot come out. The lady you seen about the ladies are old people too, and we have real problem. And every time, you understand, people work, they can't even get their money. And you understand, and the cousin, the corruption against each other, they were chopping, they fighting. You understand, they can't feed their family. You understand what I'm saying? So we have a serious problem, and then we can't see nobody to talk to. Like, I tell them, get the Prime Minister, like, come and see the road. He can't only study in St. David alone, he have to study us too.
Government go, government come. I don't fight for no government. We fighting for betterment. The road is not now. They do not this kind of Mickey Mouse thing. They're taking foreigners from abroad and paying them. We contractors around the place, northeast. But Grenada carry competing Martinique. And it's time for this thing to stop. All they do is running about on the government. I don't fight for government. We fight for betterment. That's why God choose NDC to be right here. You understand? The money going on brethren and sisters. I mean, it's overbearing. They kill agriculture. No little road come for to give us a job. They choosing we to get a job. We could do the work for ourselves.
So as you see here, we have an open trench here. This work has started probably 2 months ago, and you see nothing has been done here for the past month or so. As you see, the water here is providing us a stench here. The water is great. We're calling our ministry here to come have a look at this here.
The state of the Willis Road is also a major challenge for bus operators who traverse the route daily.
Frankly speaking, as a bus operator along the roads, we've been affected by the road not being completed, and it's sort of a hassle because you have a lot of ditch and in the road and pothole, and it's really inconvenient. I just really would like the authorities to take the necessary steps to get the construction back on foot and going as soon as possible.
We will continue to follow this story and provide updates once available. Reporting for MTV News, I am Akila Aberdeen.
Now, that project is still like that there, I'll have you all know. Almost 3 years. 23? Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, going on probably almost 50 if you think. This road project has been like that. Now they asked to see the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister did show up. They had a meeting with the Prime Minister. And here's a snippet of the Prime Minister at that meeting.
If you give a contractor a design for a road, and he brings the design, and when he comes to the road, the design is something that simply cannot be built, then it's not the contractor's fault. It's the government fault. So whoever the former administration used to design the roads in the first place either did not do a good job, or maybe the government didn't care whether they do a good job because it was all part of trying to see things happening with this election coming. The second is, I'm not going to apologize for that. No single contractor should have gotten a contract to build 11 or 12 roads in Trinidad at the same time. No single contractor in my view should get a contract to build 2 roads in Trinidad at the same time, because they don't have the capacity to build more than 1 or 2 roads at the same time. And that is the honest truth. So by giving one person all of this, you basically tied up the government in a situation where it is very difficult to even walk away, because you can't even build up the roads to save you this road at a time, this road at a time. Because they will not have the manpower, they will not have the cash flow to be able to build 600 roads at the same time. This time is limited money. Most contractors don't have their own cash to go and buy the steel and cement and continue to go until the plant is. So from the get-go, this entire thing was designed before.
I believe the problem is more that no contractor will put up all their money on a government road project up front, right? You don't know the people's pockets. However, I didn't understand it to mean that because the company had a contract for 11 projects, that they were supposed to do them all at once. I thought, well, as a matter of fact, they did, right? And they had concluded a number of projects. I'm going to read that to you later. Now, I'll also have you know, if you hear the Prime Minister that's saying that no contractor should be given 12 projects at any one time, never, not at all. Hanover had signed for 11 contracts with the previous administration. And NDC, the Deacon Mitchell-led NDC, when they came into office, added the 12th. They asked them to take on the 12th contract. And he stood there and said, no contractor should be given 12 contracts. Deception. I mean, how much more deceptive can this guy be? The MP for the area, Ron Redhead, thanked the residents for coming out to the meeting with the Prime Minister and invited them to a walkthrough with the Prime Minister, the contractor, the stakeholders involved. Here is Ron Redhead.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I just wanted to give a very brief update as to the project at Willis, New Hampshire, Constantine, and Adel area. That's the road project. So yesterday we had the community meeting. It was well received. Excellent attendance, and I want to commend all of the residents. I thought that you were very polite, professional, and most importantly, you showed the passion to ensuring that this project is going to become a reality. And so for that, as your member of parliament, I want to commend you on what I thought was a splendid performance on your part to be able to turn out to this meeting, say what the concerns are, and share it openly and frankly. So you spoke, the Prime Minister listened, and certainly as a government, we pledge our full commitment to seeing this project completed once and for all. Every year is next year, is next year, is next year. Well, we are safely going to say that we are going to complete this project in short order. But as it stands now, we have a number of outstanding matters still to address, and one being, most important one, is that we intend to go to the community on Tuesday of next week at 9 a.m. So we are calling on all residents who would be home to join with the Member of Parliament, myself, and to join with the Honourable Prime Minister in his capacity as Minister for Infrastructure, so that we can look at some of the low-hanging fruits of the project. And by that I mean the areas in which we need to fix and repair people's driveways, gaps, so that they can have proper access to their properties. We want to address this almost immediately. So next Tuesday, we are calling on all residents and people affected by this ongoing work to join with the government of Grenada as we walk through the entire project to be able to determine those areas and bring a speedy resolution. The second thing is we intend to partner with the local contractors to do just that, the subcontractors. So we are going to ensure that as a government we remain committed to achieving this. So we need your commitment. We desperately need your commitment. In fact, we are not pleased at all with what has happened, and therefore to make this right, we definitely need you and your support to see it become a reality.
I don't understand where the residents come in to see it a reality and why you need all residents to walk through. However, a meeting, they're good at extemporing. A meeting was held, or sensationalizing. A meeting was held on the 8th of April 2024, and it was agreed upon that, and a date was set for the walkthrough, which was April the 16th, 2024, for the walkthrough with all stakeholders. On that day, Hanover showed up with his team. Apparently, the Prime Minister had to fly out, so he was absent. He was in the clouds. No surprise there. The CTO nor the Permanent Secretary showed up, nor the advisor to the minister showed up. That is Mr. Rodney George, who, by the way, was supposed to be the interlocutor between the government and Hanover. Ron Redhead showed up with the media, and Andy Williams, Minister of Implementation, showed up, and so did a representative from Gravel and Concrete and 2 junior engineers from the ministry. And they did what they had to do, and that was the last the Hanover Company heard from the government of Grenada. Eventually, the project was terminated in September of 2024. The government are in total breach of the contract. Now, I woke up yesterday morning, that was Wednesday, January the 21st, 2026, to 2 letters in my DM after the Prime Minister announced the evening before on the narrative about the Willis leftover Hanover project. Inside let me see, the letter, one of them 3 pages long, the other 6 pages long. So of course, I cannot read the entire thing, but I'll give you the gist of the letter. And the letter, both letters were written to Mr. Alva Brown, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Infrastructure. And it said, the first one said, "Dear Mr. Alva Brown, reconstruction of roads and bridges project lots 1, 2, and 3. We acknowledge receipt of your correspondence dated June the 10th, 2025, regarding the Roads and Bridges Project and Hanover Construction Company Limited, Hanover, claims arising from the termination of the contract. We note that despite the Ministry of Infrastructure's continued rejection of our claims, the employer has now advanced a without prejudice state settlement proposal of the sum of EC dollars 7.5 million. While this figure is substantially below the quantum validated by two independent experts, determinations calculated as of March 2025. Mr. James Gayer, determination of EC dollars 31,514,061 and Mr. Robert Siden's determination of EC dollars 32,641,000 plus. Right? Now, the letter is stating that Hanover has sent their estimate for settlement to the ministry, and they have turned down their estimates and offered them $7.5 million. Basically, that's the front page of the first letter, and I believe the second letter is basically saying the same thing. And this one was, these things come in my DM, it was very, right? And this letter was dated the 12th of September, 2025 to Mr. Alva Brown again, basically stating the same thing. We'll put the letters up so you guys could read the 3 and the 6 pages. You know, time is already against us, right? Now, after receiving those letters, I reached out to the Hanover office here, and yes, they still have an office here because their business was not wrapped up properly, and so they still have an office here. The equipment are still here. As I understand it, basically some of them are rotting, or millions of dollars worth of equipment, right? Equipment are still here on island. Now, Hanover had asked the government of Grenada to settle out of court for $25 million, just monies owed to persons as a result of the project, workers, service providers, hardware stores, financial institutions, suppliers, truckers, etc. Persons owed, and they totaled their invoices and they asked for $25 million. They were willing to forgo other monies they could have claimed for. They were turned down, as you would see in the letter, and was offered $7.5 million, half of what they asked for. The company now wants to be sorted out on their claims and also for breach of contract for the remaining of the contract. They also plan to file an injunction so that the government of Grenada cannot move forward without settling monies owing to them. You either close off the arrangement with Hanover, or they'll take the government to court. Hanover has, and the Prime Minister is saying it clearly, a leftover Hanover job, right? The Willis project, right? Hanover has completed 5 out of the 12 projects thus far, the Laborie Road, the Munich to Bacalat Bridge, Bel Air Road, St. George's Estate Road, Telescope Road. Now, the La Pastora Road was 80% completed at the time of the termination. So that's work in progress. Claboni Road in progress. Now, you've heard Miss Rolanda McQueen. I mean, time and time again, we did a whole program on that. It is still the same way. They throw chip stone maybe about 3 times. The water went with it, they throw another set, the water went with it, they throw another set, right? Part of the road is done. I drove there to get up to the mountain on part of the road, and that's where Hanover got to, and the rest of it is undone. I mean, the lady lost tricks, all her vehicles, most of the time are down the road. I mean, she's been begging for us to come back and see where it's at now, and nothing is being done with that road. That's going on 3 years as well, right? 3 or 4 years. It's getting there. Red Mud Road was in progress, and of course the Willis Constantine Road was in progress. The roads to be completed. So we had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 roads or projects. 5 of which done, 4 in progress. The Prime Minister said nobody could do 12 using his authority as Minister of Infrastructure in the wrong places, right? And so they had roads to be completed, and the problem was designs to get so that they could get started, and that is the Mondelez to Old Wester Hall Road. That's one of the roads the Prime Minister called out as well. Concord and Brothers to Mount Cenis, and I believe the Brothers Road is the one this NDC administration added to the 11 roads that Hanover had. The company has lost millions of dollars in the process thus far. According to MP for the area, Ron Redhead, the project will be back on the way. The project will continue in 2026.
Work on the Willis-Constantine, New Hampshire project is expected to restart in 2026 after being halted for 3 years. The announcement was made by Ron Redhead, Member of Parliament for St. George Northeast, who said the project stalled because a proper design was not in place when the current administration took office. Redhead explained that the government used the downtime to create an appropriate design to guide the project's completion. He also confirmed that 3 contractors have been sourced and are expected to start work once all preparations are finalized.
To redesign a number of things. There was no design for this project and people's property. There were no acquisition plans in place to acquire. So stuff was done, people's stuff was dug up and so on, and nobody could say who, what, how much, etc.
Meanwhile, concerns continue to grow among residents and business operators in the area. A businessman from New Hampshire told GBN that the prolonged pause of the project has created frustration and called on the government to move forward with construction.
As it relates to the bridge, well, since this new government took office, absolutely nothing has happened on this bridge. The workers went home. If you look at the condition of it now, grass growing, vine, people tying animals, everything going on here except fixing it and making it passable. More importantly, that hill that you're looking at in the distance there, that is commonly referred to as River Hill, because of the construction work that was done in preparing for this bridge, a lot of excavation took place. And what you find happening now when you drive up there, you're going to realize that parts of the road are starting to move. And if nothing is done about this very quickly, that entire hill will start to collapse and the entire village will be cut off.
The project remains inactive for now, but is slated to resume next year following the completion of planning and procurement procedures. Shania McIntosh, GBN News.
Simon Says will keep you updated and abreast of the situation as it unfolds and as information reaches us. We're moving on to gravel and concrete, as promised. Printed in the November 28th, 2025 newspaper article in the New Today, the article detailed the unauthorized use of $20,000 from gravel and concrete funds by a female employee. Now, let's get to the article. I'll read that for you. Lest we forget, give you a little reminder there. O'Hare. Right. And it says misuse of 20,000 from gravel and concrete. The governing board of the state-owned Gravel and Concrete Corporation is coming under pressure for allegedly attempting to cover up the unauthorized use of $20,000 EC dollars from the funds of the company by a female employee. No, it wasn't attempted. They did cover it up. They did cover it up. Well-placed source told the New Today that the employee, who is part of the management committee, used the money without any approval from management to engage in overseas studies in Britain. A source familiar with the issue confirmed the matter was discussed at the level of the board of directors, but no decisive action was agreed upon to censor the employee for her action. He said the manager of Gravel and Concrete, Arthur Oliver, only asked at a board meeting to give an explanation about the 20,000 that the employee managed to access without approval. He stated that one board member has suggested that the employee should be dismissed, but did not get the support of some of the other members. Now, let's not forget this board just have 4 or 5 members, and they're supposed to have 9. Who resigned, who did not go back after their tenure, but and they have not had a new board reinstated. Speculation is rife that political considerations might have been an issue in the indecision of the board, as the employee involved is from a rural constituency in St. Andrew and did support the ruling Congress party in the 2022 general elections. So are we going to let everyone who supported the NDC at a certain level in the past election, the last election, to get away with crimes of corruption, fraud, embezzlement, whatever, theft, right? Or it depends on who your friend is and your friend relationship to the prime minister and other members of the hierarchy. Now, according to the source, some employees at the company have told the manager that he should take full blame for the money issue. The New Today was told that this is not the first issue involving monies and this particular female employee. I also heard so and got that information that the employee was involved in money issues and was truly fired. But because a friend is a friend of a friend, she was able to get back her job. Or should I say, a friend of hers is a friend of the Prime Minister's, who is the minister for, the line minister for gravel and concrete. She got back her job. It was like William Batiste and the Lotto. And funny how William Batiste is involved in this saga. The current chairman of the board of gravel and concrete, Sylvester Quallis, who is currently in Canada fulfilling a diplomatic position given to him by the Congress government of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. I like how they say given to him, because it was just given to him, for real, right? And yes, he is still, His Excellency, Consul General, is still the chairman of Gravel and Concrete, the illegal board of directors of Gravel and Concrete. Gravel and Concrete has had a history of mismanagement for over 30 years under successive governments. Oliver has not answered several calls made by the New Today to his cell phone on Thursday. In the early days of the current Congress government, several fingers were pointed at a particular board member of the state body for engaging in several acts of wrongdoing. And that is Mr. William Batiste. His name in Collier, I could tell you. I got the information. I have the facts. The director is known to have gotten the company to purchase office furniture from his private company. Then his private company was still in ashes. Right after the last election in 2022, it was still in ashes. But he was able to sell furniture to both companies where he was on the board, Gravel and Concrete and the lottery, the National Lottery Authority. He has since been removed as a member of the board of directors. The current line minister of Gravel and Concrete is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. So that was the article that got me investigating this whole thing of, but a lot of things in the article direct me to an individual that I know very well. And the going to study in Britain and the being from the rural area, campaigning in the last election, it's Facebook badge on for the government, right? And well, it's slowed down a little bit now, right? Now, as I told you a couple of episodes ago, of course, I went into investigation mode because it's been a while. I've been hearing and getting hints and information on the corruption at Gravel and Concrete. I got into it a couple of times, a little bit here on Simon Says. Now, some of it involving friends and colleagues of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, some of it involving members of the board of directors, which might have been the reason for the board members, the existing ones, of course, to try and cover up the corruption involving other members of staff. My investigation opened a can of worms, so to speak, revealing the names of several members of staff involved in corruption, fraud, sexual harassment within the company. However, today, I concentrate on what led me there in the first place, that article in the New Today newspaper on investigating a name came up in connection with the article printed. And this is coming from sources on the inside. The alleged individual, Ms. Michelle Sabrina Alexander, the company's human resource manager, as the allegedly culprit who's allegedly responsible. Now, the newspaper article did say the female is in management and she is the HR manager, which brings her in management. Now, according to the article, the unauthorized use of 20,000 EC dollars from the company funds to engage in overseas studies in Britain. However, my investigation revealed that Alexander did go to Britain to study, but on a full Chevening scholarship, 100% free scholarship. So if that is the case, then the monies was not used for studies, and therefore she did not need to use companies' fund, unauthorized companies' fund. I believe we can call that stealing, right? To pursue her studies in Britain. According to someone on the inside, it might have been for her return, for her graduation, where she was accompanied by her accomplice, their payroll officer, Miss Cindy Roberts. Now, according to the information revealed to me, the figure floating around the office was almost twice as much what was put in the newspaper. I heard a figure of 35,000. I heard a figure from someone else that said 37,000. Someone suggested that it might have been the 20,000 should have been USD and not ECD. I also learned that this was not the first time, or the first incident rather, involving the HR manager and money problems. It is alleged that she was actually fired. And as I said before, was reinstated almost immediately because a very close friend of hers is a very close friend of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. Now, so she got back a job. Kind of like the Lotto situation, where the chairman of the board, William Batiste, was a friend of the Prime Minister. And so when he was fired for the corruption by Minister Jonathan Lecret, the Prime Minister ordered him to be reinstated, to take back the letter, and therefore he was reinstated as chairman of the board of directors of the Lottery Authority. I must hasten to say, Gravel and Concrete is right up there with the National Lottery Authority when it comes to corruption and mismanagement of funds. It might be even worse, because in the Lottery Authority, we know of the individuals rather, directly involved. And it doesn't involve staff. You haven't heard of staff getting involved in the corruption. In Gravel and Concrete, it seems like it's free for all. Everybody doing their own thing, everybody touching, everybody opening businesses. It's just free for all at Gravel and Concrete. So Gravel and Concrete might be even worse than the Lottery Authority. Gravel and Concrete is also that department, or institution or company, whatever you call it, is under the Ministry of Infrastructure, line minister being Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. I wonder if he had ever visited Gravel and Concrete to meet the workers. I must try and find that out because he never did meet the workers at the international airport where that is under his ministry as well. My sources told me that Miss Alexander, as HR manager, creates jobs and employs her friends. It was also reported that the HR manager is not confidential. I was told that Miss Alexander has a driver who drives her to and from work daily. Initially, the driver, one Merlin Richards, stuck around the company all day. When she come down, I guess to go back up to St. Andrew and come back down and to go back up. It was a bit of a hassle and they didn't have a job besides driving the HR manager. So she remained around. However, that didn't last long because the HR manager, together with the payroll officer, put Miss Merlin Richards on the payroll, creating a made-up position for her as mining secretary. As I was told, mining don't need a secretary, but I guess it's a good thing to say, you give them one. The idling continued because, as I said, they say mining do not need a secretary. I was also told since the story broke, the payroll officer has been working from home. The question is, who gave the payroll officer the permission to work from home? Is she still working from home? By whose orders? Did she work at home, whether it was for a week or two, or is she still there? The question is being asked. I am asking the question. Is she hiding from the investigation? Is she back at work on a daily basis? The HR manager collects checks, monthly checks from the Lottery Authority as a donation, supposedly towards Bridge Learning Center, an organization where persons are given a second chance to do exams who might have dropped out of secondary school. And so it's a great program. I must say, I know of it. I was involved in it to a certain extent. It's the brainchild of Ms. Michelle Sabrina Alexander. A complimenter on that. The checks are written in anonymous names. The question is why? If donations are given to a company that's helping people, and not just young people, older ones as well, awesome. And if the Lottery Authority is donating towards that on a monthly basis, why isn't it above board? Why is the checks not written to Bridge or Bridge Learning Center, I think it was, or to Miss Michelle Alexander, who is the person in charge of Bridge Learning Center? Why are the checks written in anonymous names? And then given to Miss Alexander, who turns around and changes the checks at Gravel and Concrete. Who's okaying these checks from the Lottery Authority? We know the two signatories are Mr. William Batiste and his lady friend, Miss Cindy Henry, at the Lottery Authority. I understand from my investigation outside of Gravel and Concrete that Mr. William Batiste and Miss Michelle Alexander has a special relationship. They're good friends. They're tight. Why are these checks written in sister name, cousin name, friend name, all kind of name? And why are these checks being cashed out at Gravel and Concrete? Who's in charge at Gravel and Concrete? Who knows what's the, I mean, the manager, the board, do you all know what is going on? You all know what's going on, but you're covering it up. Why is the question? The question is why the cover up? There's a common culprit in this shadiness, this culprit involving the National Lottery Authority and Miss Alexander Gravel and Concrete, and it is the chairman of the Lottery Authority, Mr. William Batiste. Sources say that Mr. Batiste and Miss Alexander has a very close relationship. Miss Alexander was hired at Gravel and Concrete after the 2022 general election, a strong advocate and supporter of the NDC. She since owns a couple businesses. If you look on your screen, you would see them there. And lest we forget, Mr. William Batiste was a member of the first board of directors appointed to Gravel and Concrete after the NDC took office in 2022. Remember, Mr. Batiste on his own hired his lady friend as the managing director of the Lottery Authority without the rest of the board knowing about it. It's supposed to be a decision of the board of directors. The board of directors hires the managing director of the Lottery Authority. Mr. William Batiste did it on his own. Just like he and the manager bought the commercial building on Melville Street on their own without informing the board, without informing the Ministry of Sports and the cabinet of Grenada. But that's another investigation to come, because I've been hearing that Lotto monies bought the building, but the building belongs to an individual. And it's an answer to the question of why the rent monies were being sent to St. Andrew, to an office in St. Andrew, where the chairman of the board is from, and have lots of friends, close friends, that knocks glasses together with the Prime Minister in St. Andrew as well. So there's the next investigation to come up. But the building, I was told, does not belong to the Lottery Authority. And that would answer the question why the managing director, she told the staff that the office would be moving to that building in 2023. They were supposed to move over to that building, the office on the Carenage. And to date, they're still on the Carenage. Sylvester Quallis, also a friend, very close friend of Mr. Batiste. He is the chairman of the board of directors. The board was gazetted by the government of Grenada on Friday, August the 19th, 2022. William Batiste, as a director on the board, had the company purchase from him brand new furniture for the office of Gravel and Concrete, amounting to over $200,000. The same was afforded to the National Lottery Authority, where he was appointed as the chairman and still is the chairman of the board of directors. Even after all the allegations, even after all the accusations, even after all the facts was brought out, came out and brought to the people on Mr. William Batiste, he was renewed for another 2 or 3 years as chairman of the board of directors. The prime minister did say he's not going to be hoodwinked into firing his friends as the Tillman Thomas led administration did, and that no one is perfect. And all about pot calling Petal Black and who threw the first stone. And I mean, some of you might know it by heart now. I played it so often on Simon Says, right? Now that was before his bankrupt company, Catwills Stationery, was back up and running. That did not take long to happen. Did I mention that Mr. William Batiste and his lady friend, managing director of the National Lottery Authority, are the only 2 signatories? Yeah, I did. I did. I mentioned it many times and time again, but I needed to sink in because Mr. Batiste and his lady friend are the ones signing checks to the Lottery Authority. So they sign checks for vacation to France. They sign check to go to a meeting for 1 day and spend 2 weeks in France. They sign checks for meeting in the US, which no other office members know of the meetings and what it is about, and what is the lottery doing in a 1-day meeting in France, spending 30,000 one way and 36,000 together on hotel, right? This has to sink in. Today, Catwills is like the phoenix. It has risen out of the ashes.
You need stationery? Come to Catwell Stationery Services Limited, the reliable office supply people located on Scott Street, St. George's. Now with the same great service that you love and even better prices on all your stationery for office and school. We have office supplies, office furniture and more. Don't tell nobody, but we have the lowest prices nationwide. We also provide fast and free delivery service island-wide from our Scott Street location. For more information or to order, call 422-5848 or 5747. Email us at catwillsoffice@gmail.com or pull up and visit us on Scott Street and get the biggest selection in stationery for office and school at our everyday lowest prices store-wide. Catwills for selection, services, and savings.
It pays off to be a buddy and a colleague of the Prime Minister. It pays off to be a nation builder, it will seem. If you look on your screen, you will see photos of what's supposed to be the Skills Training Center. As right there on Scott Street in the same building as Catwills. The Skills Training Center funded by the National Lottery Authority. What you saw there was a $200,000 worth of monies. Yeah, a check was signed, sealed, and delivered to Mr. Williams, but Mr. William Batiste, by Mr. William Batiste. Nothing has happened there with reference to any type of training to date. However, a $5,000 rent is being paid monthly for the space. A facilitator was brought home from Montreal, Canada, and is being paid a monthly salary for training air after receiving approximately $70,000 for the preliminary proposal, which remained just that, a proposal. It did not go further than that. $70,000. Now, the other culprit involved in the gravel and concrete corruption is the Minister for Corruption, Andy Williams, having workers at the company sign slips allowing concrete to leave the company for personal and private purposes. When workers complain of the wrongdoings, they are penalized. One such lost their job recently, was fired. And as I understand it, another was demoted. I don't understand. I don't understand. When you have persons, and I'm not sure who they are, the one that was fired, as the information reaching me, is a young person, a youth. And if someone like that is speaking out against wrongdoings, instead of dealing with it, you're trying to cover it up and firing the individual, a young person, and now she's out there and can tell the world, if she would like to, what's going on, what went on, and why she was fired. I have been reliably informed that Ms. Alexander was put on a payment plan to pay back the monies stolen from the company. She remained in her position as HR manager on the job. This after the managing director told me that nothing written in the newspaper article was true. What's the payment plan for then? Who is judge and jury? Right? Nothing written in the newspaper article was true. It was all false, he said. On that same day, on the 2nd of December 2025, I also spoke to the chairman of the board of directors, Sylvester Quallis, His Excellency Sylvester Quallis, who still is the chairman of the board, even though he is now Consul General. But it's about eating of food. He is now Consul General of Ottawa, the capital of Canada, where he is stationed. Now, the board of directors had held an emergency meeting on Monday, the 1st of December 2025. And so I questioned Mr. Quallis about the meeting and what was the outcome of the meeting. What was discussed? He said that he couldn't discuss with me up front what came out of the meeting, but that to expect a release from the board of directors on Wednesday, the 3rd of December 2025. I proceeded to let him know that I had started my investigation and had spoken to the manager of the managing director, Mr. Arthur Oliver, who told me in no uncertain terms that the newspaper article was all false and that I have information contrary to that. I related that to the chairman of the board, Mr. Sylvester Quallis. I also told him that I believe the managing director was at that meeting, and if that's his conclusion, then I believe that is the conclusion of the board of directors. He said, wait for the release. I am still waiting for the release. That release never came out on the 3rd of December after I told Mr. Quallis, Sylvester Quallis, some of my findings from my investigation. And therefore, he knew that some of it, that there are things out there, and that they couldn't come and tell the people that it's all false, that it's rumors. And so the release never came out. I called Mr. Quallis, Mr. Sylvester Quallis several times after this, to ask about the release. He refused to take my calls. Now, he don't answer my calls anymore. I text him, asking him. He read my message and did not respond. I made it clear to him that I was going to come to the people with the information I have. And here I am today. Now, I had hoped the board statement would have come out and we would have heard something from the authorities of gravel and concrete. I also understand that the chairman, His Excellency Sylvester Quallis, after his company went bankrupt and allegedly saw the reason for his job in Ottawa, that checks from gravel and concrete was written to him monthly. I hear 5,000, 4,000. Mr. Quallis, asking you, sir, to come forward and deny or let us know if that is so. Why, as chairman of the board, you are receiving what could be termed a monthly salary. It's rumored. We need to know. If that is so, the people would like to know. And if that is so, we would like to know why. And while you're at it, you can please explain the cover-up of the crimes at gravel and concrete. I do know that there is at least one member of the board of directors who has not agreed to the cover-up and whose recommendation was to terminate the contract of the HR manager. In closing, I must let you know, to whom it may concern, that there are other pockets of corruption at gravel and concrete. If you wish, I can supply you with names so you can do your investigation. Please feel free to contact me. I must also let you know that I intend to dig deeper and share my findings with the people of the people of Grenada, of what is going on at gravel and concrete. Corruption, wrongdoings, as I was told, from captain to cook and crook. Folks, I've learned that the government of Grenada has a number of employees on payment plan, paying back monies they have stolen from the government of Grenada and its statutory bodies. Persons I understand of high up level in the service. There are also a number of young persons and others alike who have stolen from constituency offices, and not little money, no. I want to know what $30,000 is doing lying around in a constituency office for one person to pick up $30,000 and go with it. And in one office, as I understand it, 3 different persons stolen big monies from that office. St. John, the constituency office for St. John, the St. Andrew Northeast, the office of constituency office of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, St. Patrick West, After the former administration got rid of the corruption or the person causing the corruption in that office, who was actually on the run at one point, but you know Grenada, he dart out to Trinidad and take a rest down there and he come back and everything is fine. And who at the time, now this individual is the brother of the representative, Mr. Joseph Andel, his brother. And his brother that went up on platform and said the worst things about Mr. Andel at the time, because he was then NNP, and Mr. Andel, of course, is NDC, was NDC. And that was in the 2018 elections, right? Or 13, one of them, or both of them, I don't know. He was on the platform for the NNP, but he was fired after he was what they call community development officer or something. They're in charge of giving board and wood and things to the constituents and house and gas and pay electricity bills and things. Yeah, right? And plenty corruption, businesses, car rentals, driving school and plenty things. He's back in the same position now because he supported his brother on the platform in the 2022 election, and he's back in the same position. And as I was told from the St. Patrick West people, doing the same things, and it's okay now. It's okay now, and that's the problem I'm having. Because it was wrong when NMP doing it, but the same thing now is right. It's correct. It's okay. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. And so everybody think it's okay to do it. Yes. The young people who get a little job in these offices and see it happening from on top, big money spending, they want to spend too. This Christmas season, the National Lottery Authority monies was used as a campaign strategy. Monies flowing as water. Trucks, loads, toys and hampers distributed by MPs and caretakers of the NDC party only. So where there were no MPs, MPs, yeah, it could only be NDC, they're in office. Where there are no MPs and they have caretakers, but the MP there is for the opposition, the caretakers for the NDC received the monies, like David Andrew and Tessa Sincere. Well, those two were drowning. If you look on your screen, you'll see a whole patio, a whole veranda full, and that was just for one day. There are other days. Caravan of trucks carrying toys around the St. Andrew Northeast. The Lottery Authority money. No problem there. Who's signing the checks? Nobody to say, well, why are we giving 35,000 plus and monies keep flowing? One person who was close to one of these persons that was given monies when one in a constituency, he said to me, and he's a member, he supports, but he said, I couldn't deal with it. It was just too much. That is not right. Just money flowing, lottery money to purchase hampers and toys was given out. I mean, they had a caravan of trucks in St. Andrew Northeast driving around the Northeast to give out toys. Look on your screen. You see it. I'm not making it up. Well, one MP, Ms. Karine James, well, she was the only one I heard actually thanked the lottery authority for the monies they gave to them to do that. She was wearing a Santa Claus suit. Every polling division she went in a different Santa Claus suit to give out the toys. I saw hampers, they couldn't even lift them up the tree. Hams. And you know, I feel I'm happy for the people who collected it, who received it, which was probably almost every NDC supporter in the different constituency. Hams was literally in St. David's. Every bag had a ham, right? But it was not genuine. That's the thing, though. It was an election ploy. It was an election ploy. If we have that type of money that we can give towards hampers and toys, why our patients at the General Hospital are sharing oxygen? Take it out, wipe the tubes, and push it up in the next patient's nostrils. Why? The cannula? The cannular tube, yes, the nasal cannula. Why? Patients, families have to bring gloves. And when they bring a box of gloves, it has to share on the ward. Why there was no bread in the supper for the patients at the hospital? A piece of chicken, a piece of lettuce, and a piece of tomato. Here's your supper. Why? Why can't we fix our roads? Forget the big projects. The small projects within the villages that been there 2 and 3 years, going on 4 for some. Why can't we use the lottery money that says for nation building, sports, culture, and nation building? Why can't we use it for that? If we can pump thousands and thousands of dollars into food hampers and toys as an election ploy. And as I'm a hospital, the nurses of Mount Sinai, they done tools for pay, for safe staffing, full staffing benefits, and protection. These are all the things we are paying Mount Sinai, $2.5 million US annually to help us with here in Grenada, you know. And they have nurses. Take a look at the demonstration.
It looks like no deal has been reached because you can see behind me these nurses are still out here at the picket line. They've been out here since early this morning, 6 a.m. That is officially when the strike went into effect. Take a live look here. Let me step out of your way so you guys can see these nurses. This crowd is just getting bigger and bigger as the hours go by. As you recall, it was 3 years ago where nurses, some from this same hospital, went on strike for 3 days. Now, the question everyone has this morning is how long will this strike last? Officially, they went on strike at 6 a.m. They have walked off the job and onto the picket line. And according to the nurses union, this is the largest nurses strike in city history. We're talking about nearly 15,000 nurses from 3 hospital systems. Mount Sinai, Montefiore, and New York Presbyterian say they were at the negotiating table throughout the night trying to reach a deal, but clearly little progress was made at the bargaining table. The nurses' contract expired on December 31st, and shortly after that, the union voted to authorize this strike. Here's what the nurses are demanding: better pay, safe staffing levels, fully funded health benefits, and protection for workplace violence. Right here, you're looking at other hospitals that are out there as well on the picket line, other locations across the city. We actually spoke to nurses who tell us that this is not just about money, but about safety for both them and patients.
I know both sides of the aisle here. I know management side, I know our side, and I know as a family member who has a sick one in the hospital. It means a lot for people to take care of you, and they should have the compassion of what needs to be done here. Let's make what needs to be done right between both sides.
The state has stepped in. Governor Kathy Hochul has issued an executive order to keep patient care ongoing. And Fox 5 received statements from the three hospital systems. Montefiore writing in part, New York State Nurses Association's leaders continue to double down on their $3.6 billion in reckless demands, including nearly 40% wage increases, going on to say they are committed to providing safe and seamless care regardless of how long the strike may last. Now, New York Presbyterian saying that its hospitals remain open, so do their emergency departments, and that they will call any patients if they have to switch or change any appointments or procedures. They will be contacting patients. As for Mount Sinai, they also say they're ready to care for their patients. We know, as you take a live look here, that they have brought in, as well as New York Presbyterian, they brought in outside nurses. We're talking about 1,000 nurses or so that they brought in since this strike they knew was most likely going to happen. And here we are. But I want to tell you a little bit more how big this crowd is. I mean, we're on 101st, East 101st Street, and it goes all the way to 99th on both sides of the hospital. They're even at one point were blocking the main entrance of the hospital, chanting, saying things like we are demanding of just a fair contract, calling hospital management greedy. Those are just some of the things that they were saying. But Rosanna, these nurses say they will stay out here as long as it takes. Last time, 3 years ago, was 3 days. This year, they say if it has to be more, they will be out here. They want a fair contract. They want to be safe. So again, two sides to all stories here, but hopefully they can come to an agreement. One of the nurses tells me that one of his patients last night was saying to him that he was afraid that this could happen. He didn't know who was going to take care of him. So it's not just the nurses and the management, but also the patients who are stuck in the middle.
Patients here at Mount Sinai Morningside are walking right past striking nurses at the corner of 114th and Amsterdam. Margaret Bates held up her hand in solidarity.
If they have more nurses, then they all feel better, and it's better for the patients, but they also deserve more money.
Toby Guichet, here to see his pulmonologist for sleep apnea, sees a harsh reality.
The nurses work very hard for what they do. They do need more, and the hospital needs to make money at the same time, so both got to give a little.
The union says 6,400 Mount Sinai nurses are striking. Only 1,400 replacements have been sent. Mac Rosenberg, 1010 wins on 92.3 FM.
It looked like Mount Sinai going to have to bring in nurses from Ghana and doctors from Nigeria. Folks, back to where it all started. Where we await some sort of communication from be it the Minister of Infrastructure or the Board of Directors of Gravel and Concrete, the Managing Director. But what is it's a cesspit. I understand containers come to the port, labeled gravel and concrete, get to gravel and concrete, are not even open, and are picked up by the trucks and towed away. We don't know what's in there. I understand that containers of solar lights come through gravel and concrete. Is it true? We need to know where are these lights that gravel and concrete bringing on their name. It's a mess. As I said, it is worse than the Lottery Authority because staff members are involved in the corruption. It is terrible. So we need, and don't try and sweep it under. It's already outside. It's there. You make a mistake, you're firing people. Who does that? If you fire them and you're trying to keep it undercover, no. Why you fire? Why you fire them? If you're trying to keep it undercover, they're gonna talk. So instead of trying to cover it down, deal with it. You don't have to tell us if you don't want to tell us, but deal with the individuals who you found guilty. You know that might be hard because, as I understand it, it starts from the top. The head of the fish is rotten. Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, trying to keep them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. And don't forget to tune into Simon Says 2.0 this evening, the radio version, 8 o'clock on WeFM Radio. It's for the radio people. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.